I've got 6 o'clock. We'll call this, we'll call our September meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee meeting together. We are minus one member. Mr. Ford let me know he would not be able to be present tonight. We have a couple of items on our agenda. Before we move forward with the agenda, we can discuss if there's a wish to on item 5. We do not have a finalized resolution there that we're ready to look at any further, so I'll leave it at this piece for discussion, but honestly, I don't think there's any discussion that's new at this point for this committee. If there's any item on that you want to discuss, we can leave it there. We put it in, Miss Amy, I don't know if y'all know, is out for a few more days. I don't know how many more days, but I know she let me know last Monday. We got some stuff finalized. We were hoping to have some other maybe finished, but in her absence, we put it in there just in case we got to those pieces, but we're not ready there tonight. So with that, continuing on, if you will review your minutes. I might remind everyone, I know sometimes minutes get looked over very quickly in committee meetings and in commission meetings. The minutes are your permanent record. Whatever was said and done and talked about, if it's not in these minutes, it didn't happen. When we set these minutes up as final, they are final. So I just state that to be careful to read your minutes. Got a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion does pass. Minutes are a permanent part of our record. If you will, look at your trustees balance. Your trial balance sheets. Of course, we are in the still young in a new budget. Any discussion on your trial balance sheet there? Might mention again to remember that the American Rescue Fund appears to be heavy there, but remember there's quite a few debts that are still to come out of that have been allocated for. So it doesn't necessarily show until that money's spent. If not, we'll move into the 101 general fund. Should be at your second month of our budget here. I didn't catch this, but that 25%, we should be at 16% and some change there, y'all. I didn't catch where that got put in there, but that second month's 25% is an incorrect number. It should be 1/6 of the year's budget spent at that point. I didn't catch that. That's 16.6% or 16 2/3 is what that should actually read. So as you go through here, it looks like that 25 was an accidental number all the way through. Remember, we're in the second month, 1/6, 2/12, however you want to look at it. That's 16 2/3%. Any discussion on your revenues in the 101? Looks like to me we may have underestimated investment income a little bit, but that's always okay to underestimate something such as that. In this case, we're still dealing with, on the other side of it, high interest rates. Fortunately, we do now know what our interest rate is all the way through on the county's debt. Moving into expenditures, the 101, again, that is not 25%. That is 16 2/3%.
That 58, what's the other charges is 8,400. That's one-time premiums we pay once a year. Insurance premium, workman's comp, huge. That's about it.
Mr. Krieger, I see where you're at there. Unfortunately, do not have an answer, but I will look into trying to find that answer. Miss Amy is not here. At this point to ask her that question. Hopefully I can get that clarification and I'll get it out in an email the next day or two. Sometimes those others are interesting. Similar there with miscellaneous. I will check both of those. Mayor, I noticed in the expenditures this month, we have expended 88% roughly of the park capital project. So that has been paid for before completion. Where is that at? Yes, that's what it says. It states that we've spent 88% of the park grant money has been expended. If we can, let's try to look into that because I think we've found out with the working with the courthouse, it might not be the best interest to pay up front. I'd rather not go down a learned path there. A couple questions there. It looks like in the expenditure side, and I'll try to get some clarifications on those. 101 urban services. Looking at your expenditures in 101, like I said, again, it's not 25, 16 2/3. We've got of course, your property tax revenues are always gonna run behind there. At this point, we'll see some starting to filter in October, November. The majority coming in your February. Any items of interest there? Okay. Moving into solid waste. Again, revenue sort of lagged behind for a while there. Do notice a little uptick in expenditures there at the convenience center. It's a little ahead of schedule, so maybe something we need to keep an eye on. I haven't heard Mr. Slee mention anything of any cost increases, so. And I don't know this, but that could, at some point, that the reflection of the purchased backhoe is gonna have to reflect in one of those items, so that could be one of those expensive things. Not here to let us know, but that would be an item that was certainly purchased. I believe it was purchased under convenience center though, so that could be on that line item. Ambulance. The 118. I will get Miss Amy to break down those expenditures in the future as we were on the past, so we can keep an eye on a few things there that we've been heavily watching. We're just kind of early on and we hadn't had those issues at this point from what I'm gathering. Mayor, have you heard if any PRN work has taken place through the EMS?
Sorry.
Have you heard of any PRN work? Is any of that taking place? I know we put,
Took back on their overtime.
hadn't used any PRN. Special services, again, that 121, that's your core civic pass-through money. Same way with the 122 drug fund, pass-through monies. The 151 debt service. Fortunately, we know what that graph, we no longer have to look at a graph of the changing interest rates. We know that that graph is constant for our county going forward for purchases that we've had in the past. We'll have to see what comes into debt services in the near future. Any questions, clarifications on anything here? Everybody good in the 151? That would conclude our looking at the trustees' cash balance and our financial summaries and projected fund balances as of, like we said, 16 and 2/3% of the budget. Very young into the piece. I always like to look at that quarter. The next quarter will be somewhat telling. It's always good to see where we're at that third month, 25% of the budget. We do have a budget amendment here, and to be honest with you, this is the first I've seen it. I did not receive an emailed copy of this. Miss Amy's a finalized copy. We discussed some things, but I had not seen this item, so honestly, I'm gonna ask the mayor here, I think, what is this clerical personnel that we're talking about here? Mayor, we've got a request for the mayor's office of a clerical personnel.
Yep.
What's the
Explanation of that is that, our HR director is going to have to take on more responsibilities of Amy's. Because Amy's still working a lot of overtime and she's not turning it in. And so the HR person last HR person did not have the time to learn payroll, and we're gonna need a full-time payroll person. But right now Renee is doing all of, she's paying all the bills plus payroll. We do not have a payroll backup. And I can tell you that Renee is stretched about as far as she can be stretched. And is working a lot more. But and I looked at the check sheet writing since 2000, that's gone from about 2,000 checks to like 7,000. It's increased that much.
On payroll?
Vendor checks. Bills being paid.
The only reason I question that, we were told when we moved to an automated system that our payroll would be a lot easier and a lot less hours. So we moved to an automated system where our checks went out.
It has not turned
That
out.
route.
It has not turned out to be a lot less hours. I promise you. I'm there every day.
You mentioned Miss Amy's not turning in, her position is no longer has overtime.
Correct.
Okay.
But she's still working a lot of overtime hours.
I understand how those feel. I work one of those similar type jobs in that facet. We work a lot of hours at that piece.
But in order to take some of that time off of her, to allow her to focus on the most important issues, it's going to put more responsibilities on the HR person, but she won't have time to learn payroll, I'll tell you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a
Miss,
question?
yes, sir.
There's, you referenced an automated system. I'm familiar with a vendor called Paychex. And the way that they work is if you have an automated time system, you would basically collect that data, submit that data to them, and they would take care of all of the calculations for your federal income tax, your state, of course, we don't have state income tax, but your federal unemployment insurance, state unemployment insurance, any kind of medical insurance that you have, and or 401k, that kind of stuff. They run all those calculations and basically guarantee or stand by their work. That way, if there was ever any question, IRS audit or anything like that, we would stand behind them. It would be on them. We wouldn't have any liability of a miscalculation or anything like that. Has any option like that been explored yet?
Probably not. You're saying it might be more efficient to outsource payroll.
It very well could be. I don't know without running the numbers, and I've not spoken to that particular vendor, the Paychex vendor, to even know. But from my personal experience, it made sense for my business to use it because of the time that you're talking about that goes into making sure that those numbers are absolutely accurate. It frees up that time, and it also takes away the liability of the county.
But you know,
Making a mistake.
since Vicky left, we haven't had any backup.
Right.
And that's one thing that really weighs on Renee is if she's not there, payroll doesn't get met, which would create all kinds of issues. I'd be more than willing to investigate.
Just, that was one thing, you're saying this about payroll, but literally we were told by getting this to move to here, we're taking care of the payroll problem that we have now and going into the future. I mean, that was literally what was presented to us of why we needed to pay. When this happened, we paid we paid everybody an extra 2 weeks salary just to skip that bump from happening. And then because there would have been a miss in a check there, and then they ended up getting that double check coming in. So we didn't miss any payments, and they got a bonus, pretty much the way it was written.
Going to time clocks, would be a good time to investigate.
I was just fixing to ask the exact same thing. Are we on a time clock system, or are we on a turn in a worksheet?
We're moving toward that. So.
So
it would
everything
be-
is still paper.
I'm sorry.
Everything is still paper.
So
Everything. I mean, it's an incredible workload. I'll tell you, I'm there every day. I see all the paperwork and a lot of that paperwork has to be redone. You would not imagine how many sheets have to be reworked.
Commissioner Dennis.
Again, to add to that, if we have already taken the steps to go to an automated time system, I'm not sure what the price tag on that was, but that would eliminate a lot of that paper to where it's a couple of keystrokes.
Mhm.
And if you pass it off, like I said, if it makes sense from a money standpoint to pass that liability off and take the workload off of our existing people. Again, and I'll be glad to research the company that I'm familiar with and maybe bring some numbers. But you know, $34,427. I don't know what their fees would be, but this outfit actually even calculates vacation time, PTO time, sick time, everything keeps a running calculation, all of that as well. It would just be a matter of the automated system getting the right information in there to begin with and letting it run.
Money spent up front that takes care of us well down the line. So Mayor, can we hold on this
I
position
think, yeah.
and research where we're at on that part?
Investigate this. I believe that's true.
So we can,
I'll tell you an interesting story. I was called to a manufacturing plant in the Midland, in the Carthage Industrial Park several years ago. A different job situation came up about 2 or 3 weeks later, and it was something I had to move on to, but they had a lot of downtime, and come to find out, the employees on the baseline controlled inventory. We're talking about a wreck in the first place to happen. In other words, frontline people with their inputs control inventory, which they run out of inventory and be down for 2 or 3 days because of that. A lot of this efficiency in your payroll system goes back to how those numbers are entered at the base level. And until you get that corrected, you're going to have people to spend time correcting it. And that may be the answer.
it's my understanding that all of our offices have a computer somewhere at them. So we could have a time clock piece where our school uses Time Clock Plus. There's no paper. You're in, you're out. You have to go through that system. It's very, you got a PIN number, you got a simple way. It's
Log in, log out.
Yeah.
Log in on your phone, can't you?
I don't think we would let our phone, we don't not use phones. We don't. The reason we don't utilize phones is because you can do a phone from anywhere you're at. You can do that from the house and log in, check in. It must be on a computer device that's of the county's.
I'm
School
still gonna be willing to wait on that, but let's move on that, okay? Let's move on.
I think we log in on the radio.
Correct. You go in a code that's,
Corrections, everything.
Yep.
Log in on the radio.
Yep.
So if we've got a question, we know where to go back and look.
here's what time you clocked in.
Now, the prison system, they use a fingerprint, that's in a code, that's how you logged in. That's what kept up with your time. When I worked at school, you had a certain PIN, whatever, you logged in, now you could log in on any computer in that school system, but you had to be inside that building. You had to be present,
Had to be present at work
exactly.
to log in. I think I would not be interested in a mobile app
No.
option
Mm-mm.
at all.
But I'm fine with that moving forward.
Okay. So we can move that piece off. My next, yes, sir.
One other question. How many employees does the county have? Because that may be relevant to the experience of.
120. Is that right?
What is
We can
it?
get a clear one from Amy at some point in time very soon.
120, 126, I think.
126.
That's the last number I.
I get a range from 120 to 150.
Oh, it's okay.
Unless I'm completely honest, but I think that number.
So just to be clear, we are striking that request for the mayor office clerical personnel from the budget at this time, at present time.
Okay, so are we
I'm-
leaving the dispatcher?
I'm there
I'm
now.
ahead of you, sorry.
So sheriff's dispatcher, is this one of the positions we created?
And there was budget.
It-
I put it in my budget, y'all approved it, but when I hired one dispatcher, I hired one, got her trained, I can grant work, put the jail over the dispatch. I did a change of status sheet, and somebody gave me the job to do it. Turned it in to Amy's office, she said, well, you're not funded for this time. I said, well, I put in for two, they approved it for two, just why I just got you down for four. Y'all approved it for two.
We approved 2 dispatchers. That is
I already had
correct.
6, and I'm trying to get to 8.
That was correct. We approved exactly what you'd asked for on that part. That was correct.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Oh.
she failed to put it in the budget for the other.
but we passed the budget you presented. So with the numbers you presented, that should have covered that.
Yes, I assumed it was in there, but whenever it came out to bill it, it wasn't there.
At this point, I want to hear further from Amy on that one, because we approved the budget you sent with the numbers you sent us as a commission, and then as this committee, and then sent it forward with
Well,
those.
she figured it out too. I had 2 slots now. She even figured it out. So, I don't know how. Figure out like it did.
So this would be an additional draw from the county fund to put 34,000 some change dollars to hire a position that we
You already-
feel like we've already funded.
Yeah, they're already. If I look back on the minutes, both made a second to the fund, and their budget and our week.
I think without Miss Amy here, we can't move forward with this one on this commission either. Because we funded this already. We approved those numbers.
Money's not there to pay.
Uh,
I think we need to do some more research on this.
we're gonna dig into this a little deeper at this point, because before Monday night, I would not vote for this right now, because we voted as a commission to approve the budget that we approved for you, and that budget had those positions in it. So we were under the understanding that those positions were funded. It's exactly what I think every member here is taking by their face right now.
Like the fees, I might get a position, anything, I give the numbers to her, and I give her, she's the one supposed to figure out the benefits and all that, but not me.
I understand. What I remember passing in our budget had that piece involved, would have had that funding in it as well, what we passed. So we'll go back and find out
I've had
what,
a lot of problems with the budget over the last 2 or 3 years. It's always something every year that I get fixed. We have a lot more stuff we have to fix earlier too.
we're gonna have to get some clarification on this one. Because we funded that, the new officers, I think it was a total of 7 positions is
But
what,
one thing we ran into this year, part of my department didn't get a raise. Some of them didn't get enough, some of them got too much. So we had to go back and fix them.
so my understanding, we did a step. That's all it was.
It's been messed up for 2 years. I have to go back and fix it.
On that part, I understand we put in a system that's got a step in it, and we voted for the step, so I don't know.
It went right. Some of them didn't get the step, some of them got twice the step.
Sounds like we got a lot of paperwork we need to get off somebody's hands where they can take care of some other stuff. Yes, sir. At this point, like I said, I apologize for having this conversation today, right here, and not having some answers for it, because I did not see this until literally today. So at this point, I'll take the committee's wishes, but my recommendation is that we hold this.
So that money put in for something else on your department?
I would recommend this committee that we hold here until we have clarification on that.
Fine with me, you know. I've got one ready to move over, I can hold it back a few more weeks. And get it straightened out.
It's not that I'm trying to cause an issue there. I just, what we voted on as a budget passed with those positions in it, as,
I'll go back and look at the minutes.
as I know. Yes. Sir. Thank you, Sheriff. Well, at this point, we're gonna hold on that one as well. I believe if you want to take a vote on that right now, we can take a
I
vote.
would
if we
like
need
to
to.
make a motion to hold that out until we can get clarification on both of those items.
Can I, that's where I was fixing to clear up. So we're gonna hold on each of these. So is that not tabled, but that is
It's
postponed?
postponed.
That's the word I was
Motion
looking
for postpone.
Motion to
Yes.
postpone.
I say.
We got a motion to postpone these two to the next commission, next budget meeting. And I heard a second from Mr. Gregory. Is everybody clear with the motion? With that stated, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It does pass to postpone. All right. Um. All right, with that stated, item 5, as I stated earlier, is here for wheel tax. We don't have a clear finished product at this point. I think it's, as Mr. Bell and I discussed earlier, I think it's not as muddy as it was once. It's a lot clearer today than it was a few weeks ago. And I think we can get a piece together to bring before this committee, in the near future, hopefully. Yes, sir.
One thing, we just want to make sure we've got everything in order to present to this for whatever decision the commission wants to make. You know, there's still, we want to make sure our numbers are accurate, you know, it's. Still want to make sure that we have, I've been asked to also look at the sales tax issue as well as possible, and that was something that developed really in the last month and a half or so. And I've put together just kind of a rough resolution for a sales tax which would be a referendum as well. But I've been asked to do that now, whether or not this body wants to do that in conjunction with a wheel tax or take them one item at a time. I think that's something that's up for consideration of how you want to proceed with that. As I may have said before, you know, when we were funding a justice center in Smith County, we looked at the 3 parts: the property, wheel, and sales tax. And we compiled all 3 of those together and had our figures as to what that would be. And we were able to present that to the commission, for the commission to consider how they want to proceed on it. So I know it's been talked about quite a bit. We're getting there. I'm not near as concerned about timing. So it's priority is getting it right. This is what and that's kind of where I want to make sure we do this right, because we really and truly as commissioners, I don't want to say you've got one shot at it, but whatever shot you take, you want to make it your best shot. That's kind of the way I perceive that. So.
Yes, sir. Appreciate your input. You know, we keep discussing numbers, and we know there's some heavy hits coming our way. As a commissioner for the last few years on this commission, it's been something we've continued to talk about, but some action is going to have to be taken because that day is more looming a lot quicker than we had seen prior. I know, and I'm glad to start hearing conversation in our public. I hope more members of the public come out and wish to communicate towards this one. As we're looking at this wheel tax, I love the input that our community wants to give us here in this case. I hate to be talking about a tax and having to put a tax burden on our people, but we've been faced with an option that is pretty clear. Build a jail. We know there's other costs going to be attributed in the future for the county. And those costs, our county's done well, but unfortunately we're getting some old structures that have not been updated in quite a while. So it's something that we have looming our way. Once we get a more finalized plan here, I think it's something we can discuss. In the past, just setting in a few of these pieces, whatever architect firm gives us as a cost, I've come to take those as a very rough estimate. And I think it's something we have to be very careful of and watch cost, especially watch the top end. But we're going to start planning for where some of those revenues are going to come from on the pieces we got coming our way. So it is a worthwhile task. I know it creates conversation in our public, and I hope more members of the public constituents of ours are coming out and talking and discussing where they want to be on this piece, truly. I've had some constituents reach out in the last day or two. Where are we? Where's this piece at? Got some things they want to share, and I want to hear what they want to say to us. At that point, I think though, further discussion on the wheel tax is going to take place when we have a little bit clearer resolution ready to present. It does still waver, and as Mr. Bella said this well, whatever shot we take, I think it's important that we take that shot with a closest aim as we can take for it. We're not trying to scatter out everywhere. With that being said, is there any public comments tonight? Anybody, members of the public? Mr. Ellis?
Yes, sir. If I could just speak on that proposal. I wanna just say that listening to you guys talk about your budget and trying to look at the budget online, I got dizzy looking at it. But I really appreciate all of your work on this. That you guys do every time and make hard decisions, and I need to be educated, so I've come to try to be that tonight and give you my, kind of my thoughts as a father of four. So it's redundant. You all know what the economic conditions are. I'm not trying to lecture, but the average American family will pay $700 more a month in expenses than last year. And for us personally, as a family of six, we've had to make hundreds of dollars in budget cuts. In spite of me getting a pay raise this year, I've even taken on a small part-time job. We drive used cars, we grow a lot of our food, and we just have to keep cutting. Things just keep going up. And and I understand that on the flip side, that affects the county too. That affects you and your budget and your employees, that work for us. So that's why I understand that tax increases are inevitable. And that's a way for you to raise revenue. That's why I did not oppose the property tax increase. But that being the case, if the number, I know the numbers are all over the map, they haven't been decided, but I've heard that number $100. And if it's that, for my family, that's combined with current state registration fees, that's $400 a year for us. There's 3 vehicles, one of which is my work vehicle, one of which is a old truck I used to haul feed in our family van. That means further budget cuts and more hard. I also spoke to the owner of a small electrical business down here, and he said this is going to really hit him hard, with 10, 12, 15 vehicles for his employees. So that's the violin thought, okay, from the personal thing. But I also, just want to ask some questions, and these are questions that I have that I do not know the answers to, and I'm not presuming that I know them, but we've been told that previous county governments did not plan well for the future, and that's why we're at the brink of having to make these tough decisions. But do all the tough decisions have to be tax increases? Is there a combination of things like, maybe there's some other painful budget cuts that can be considered? Maybe, if I think about me having to cut my grocery budget to help pay for these buildings, do we have to have a pool? Do we have to? I've heard you guys talking about other things that can be cut. So I think those are good discussions. There's discussions that me and my family have every single day, every month. So, and I don't think anyone is being fiscally irresponsible, but my point is this: I believe $100 wheel tax is excessive from a taxpayer standpoint. And so I would just ask a couple of questions to consider that I'm sure you already have considered. Is it possible for future projects, not the most pressing, not the most looming, the jail? Is it possible to include savings for loan payments for future building projects by relying on additional revenues from growth? We see a lot of businesses coming in, we see housing developments everywhere. Is it possible for savings to come from those things and for a modest wheel tax, a lower wheel tax, a number that would be easier for us to stomach, or at least the jail, to be considered with a clear estimate of cost, which sounds like you're working on, and with a target expiration date? I appreciate it. I live here because it's a beautiful place to live. Taxes are low. People share our values. I hear people in the public often saying, we want this service, we want a dog park, we want more of this, and I say, no, I don't want any of it. I wanna keep as much of my money as I can, raise my family in peace and safety. And that's why I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis, I appreciate your view there on that part very much and sharing those thoughts. We need to hear from our people. That's for sure. Thank you, sir. Brought some great points up. We definitely face some tough decisions going forward, without a doubt. Any further discussion from the public? We're still on public comment. If not, do I hear motion to adjourn? Had a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.